Amanda. I'll introduce you. This is Amanda Wilson. Amanda looks after all of the U.S. with respect to Ocean Guardien and all of their technologies. In some fashion, it has personal relationships with countless people, not only on the Cape Cod area, but elsewhere. So she's a pretty talented and amazing person, and I'm psyched that she can give us time tonight. I'm going to stop. Amanda, you've got the ball, and let's roll. Thanks again.
Okay. All right. So can everybody see my presentation okay? Because
yeah,
can you see it? Okay.
I can. I'm assuming everybody can. If you can't, can you just make a note in chat with a yes or a no so I know so people can see what I see?
This is new software to me, so I see a yes on there. So I'm
okay. Good. Okay, we're good.
Go ahead.
All right.
So not knowing everybody's background, what your level of familiarity is with Ocean Guardien, or what we used to be known as Shark Shield, I did put some kind of introductory slides just to go through the technology and a bit of the history of our company so that everybody's kind of on the same page. So our mission as a company is, we're really about not only protecting people, but we're also about protecting the sharks, because we don't like shark nets. We don't like drum lines. We don't like seeing sharks being killed on drum lines or in nets. And obviously nets have a lot bigger implication to other marine life as well, whether it be dolphins, whales, turtles, etc. So our goal is to really protect people as well as the greater ocean inhabitants. A little bit of history on the company itself. So we've been around for close to 20 years now. So we were founded in 2002 in South Australia. And the technology before that actually had another 20 years of scientific research done by the KwaZulu-Natal Sharks Board in South Africa. And so they had a spate of fatal attacks by great whites in the 80s or 90s. And so they started looking at what could be done to protect surfers and divers other than just the standard drum lines and nets, because obviously those only work for beach protected areas. So they started looking at different shark senses that they could exploit, and they came across the ampullae of Lorenzini, which is what our technology works on. So here we are today. There's been lots and lots of money invested in the technology, over $20 million, with $2.5 million alone in medical testing, proving that there's no harm with the electrical field to people. So we've been protecting people for a long time. We've got over 50,000 units in service. There's hundreds of end user testimonials. I run the office in the US, and then we also have an office in Sydney in New South Wales. So how our technology works is all predatory sharks and rays as well have something called an ampullae of Lorenzini. And what those are those small, if you've ever seen a shark nose up close, whether it be on Shark Week or just a picture like this, there's all these little dots on the bottom of their snout. And what those are actually the external pores, and then it goes in and connects into their nervous system. So they've got a little jelly-filled canal. And those are actually electrical receptors. And what they use those for is primarily for sensing prey. So when they're getting in close proximity to prey, their eyes either have a protective covering that cover over them, or their eyes roll back depending on the species of shark, and they actually home in on their prey. The electrical field created by our twitching, whatever they're going after is twitching muscle fibers, and they use that to find their prey. So that's one of just numerous senses that they have. I will point out that it is a very, very short range field. So we're talking, 1.5 to 2 feet away is the distance that they can sense an electric field. So that's why it's important for us to create a larger field so that they can feel it from further away from us. So our technology is based on the premise that we have a power generator. So for those of you that use the surf product, that's that blue housing that goes in the back end of your surfboard. And then we have 2 antennas, and that on the surf product is the contained in the sticker that goes on the bottom of the surfboard. And so that power module is powering up those electrodes, and then we're pulsing electricity that alternates between those two electrodes, and that allows us to create a three-dimensional electric field underwater. And so depending on the range of the product, you know, it can be 10 to 20 feet for the personal deterrents. For some of the larger range products, it can be a lot bigger. The boating product can be up to 50 feet. And so, again, it just really depends on the size of the electrodes and the distance between those, and that's going to vary from product to product. Now, one of the things that really sets our company apart from any other company that's in the shark deterrent field is the amount of scientific research that's been conducted on our technology. There has been 5 independent studies now conducted on our technology. When I say independent studies, these are not studies that we are funding at all. These are studies that have been funded by various governments. Some of it's there's been two now in South Africa, one in South Australia, one in Western Australia, and then also one in New South Wales. And those governments have funded that because of shark activity that they've had, and they wanted to look at what could be done and what was effective. Western Australia has actually introduced a rebate for our products, and so, or for any product that could meet their threshold of testing, and our products are the only ones that meet that threshold. So anybody that buys a product in Western Australia, they get $200 back for their products. So I'm just going to pause here and see if there's any questions on the technology, any research, efficacy, things like that, before I move on to the product update side. Nothing?
I don't see anything.
Okay. Then I will keep moving. So when I was out in Cape Cod last, which was probably a year and a half ago, I would guess, we were getting ready to launch our Boat 01 product. So that's been out for about a year now. And so what this is a larger scale version of our other technology. So it's very much made in the same way in that we actually have 3 electrodes that we use in this, because it's a bigger version and we're alternating, pulsing the current between them. But this has its own buoy, and then it can be floated out behind the back of a boat, and it's going to actually create a safe swimming area behind a boat for people that are swimming in sharkier areas. So this can be run off of a battery that's contained in the unit itself, or and that will run for 12 hours. Alternatively, you can have a cable running back to the boat, and you can power it indefinitely. We are also working on a solar power option that will be available shortly. And we are also working on a daisy chain cable so that you can actually connect 4 of them and power 4 of them off the boat, and create a larger swimming zone area to swim in. So this is just a little diagram of what that safe swimming area looks like from underground. So our field size on there is, we've got 8-meter depth, so it's about 26, 27 feet, and 6 meters wide, which is about 20 feet. It comes standard with a 4.4 meter antenna, so that's about 14 feet. We also have a shorter one if you're in shallower water. And that will the shallower one will make the field a little bit smaller as well. So as I mentioned, we are working on that daisy chain option, which will be available in about the March timeframe. And then, like I said as well, we're just creating a protective virtual swimming net around the vessel. And the next thing that we have coming out, this is what Heather mentioned, that the board was really excited about. And this is the what we have been spending the majority of our COVID lockdown time working on. And this is our barrier product, and that's called the LR1000, and LR just stands for long range. And so this is actually an electronic beach barrier, and this is what's going to be able to replace shark nets in various municipalities across the world. And so this is just a picture of what that looks like. And so it just floats, and that has power modules, or there's power that's running to that. And then we have, similar to like we have on the boat product or Freedom 7 product, we have antennas that drop down in the water. And so this we've been working with somebody called the Institute for Maritime Technology, and they're actually another South African entity, but they're very large into designing military grade systems. So we wanted something that was really, really robust and would last in a marine environment for a permanent installation. And so these guys have been tremendous in helping us design it for that level of installation.
So quick question, couple quick questions. 3 came in, great comments on solar. So lots of people appreciate the solar aspect.
Okay.
2 specific questions. Are Ocean Guardien looking into bracelets at some point? Time to protect people that are swimming, boogie boarding?
So we are not doing bracelets, and the reason for that is there are really 3 components that determine the efficacy of protection, or creating a large enough field, and those are the power coming out of the unit or the power module, the surface area of the electrodes, and the distance between those electrodes. And when you have a bracelet, you're limited with the distance between the electrodes and also the surface area. And so what you end up with is a really, really small field. Could we make something? Sure, we could make something, but it doesn't meet our threshold of protecting people in the water. And so it's not something that we are comfortable coming out with.
Okay, thanks. The second important question, this came from Ryan Curley in Wellfleet. Talk to us a little more about the anchoring system. I know we heard a lot of detail about it when we spoke to you before too, so maybe you haven't gotten to it yet. But
yeah, I'm going to go through a little bit more about the the setup, and there is a lot of flexibility in terms of how the beach barrier can be installed depending on the environment and whatnot. And there's just another one that says, what is the physiological effect of the field on the shark that keeps it away? So what it does is it causes spasms actually in that ampullae of Lorenzini. So that gel-filled electrical receptor, it actually spasms, and it's painful to the shark when they're in the proximity of the field. It does not cause any long-term damage to the shark. It just causes pain when it's near it. Okay, so back to the beach barrier products. So the first 100-meter section, so 400 feet or so, section was tested in the Western Cape of South Africa. So this was 6 months where they monitored things daily. So this was in Glencan, and in Glencan, it is. There was some pretty sizable swells and whatnot. And I just want to actually pull up my notes because I had a chat with our technical guy that was involved with that. So the sea states, he said, were 2.5 meters, so 8 feet or so. Change in the sea state. So some pretty sizable swells going on. In this specific installation, the Glencan one, they did a seabed installation with chains. So they dropped a chain on the bottom and then ran the electrodes and the floats going vertically from that. And then so that was 6 months of testing there. I'll go through the results on the next slide. And then a second round was just a more simple testing. It was a shorter time frame. And the reason they did that testing, it was done in Seal Island, again, in the Western Cape. But those of you that are Shark Week fans, you'll recognize the name Seal Island. That is where there is always seals, and that's where you see like the air jaws, great whites attacking the seals. So we can always find seals, so that means we can always find great whites. So that's why we did testing there, and that was more to get hard data on its effect on the shark themselves. And then we have our first commercial installation in Busselton in Western Australia going in later this summer. So this is just a quick diagram of what the field actually looks like on those. So those of you familiar with our current technology, like if anybody ever uses the dive product or like the boat product, we have the electrodes oriented in a vertical fashion, and they connect vertically as it's dropped in the water. And what we're doing with this product is a little bit differently. And so each buoy that's got the antenna hanging from it, the electrodes are connecting horizontally. So we end up with numerous horizontal fields stacked on top of each other. And so you can see that it's basically creating an electronic net with all those different electrical fields in the water. So just to go through a little bit of the test results on that. So the first testing, and this has been going on for a while, as you can see. The first testing was done in 2014 and 2015. So that 6-month period then, and then the follow-up testing was done the summer of 2016. So they had, based on the drone footage that they could see, there was 50 white sharks that were exposed to the prototype unit. And keep in mind that when we test anything, we need to get sharks to the area reliably. And the only way to do that is to bait and chum. So we have to create an artificially, I don't know if you want what the right word would be, maybe enticing environment to get the sharks to show up so that we can test our field. When you're out surfing, you're not surfing with chum and bait off the back of your surfboard. So we're creating a harsh, severe environment to test our products in. So even in that environment, when the unit was switched on, the sharks would back off from the field, and they would remain out of view of the drone footage until the unit was switched back on, when it switched back off. And as soon as it was off, the sharks would come back to the bait and happily eat away. And so then we were actually working on testing different sizings and whatnot. So as we made the field smaller, as we suspected, the sharks would come closer. As we brought it bigger again, the field was larger and the sharks stayed further away. And in both testing runs that we did, both the Glen Can and the Mossel Bay, it was 100% effective in deterring sharks. So we had no sharks that were able to come up and engage with the bait when the unit was on. So any questions on the beach barrier product? Otherwise, I just have 2 more slides on 2 other small product updates.
No, I don't see any other questions. How expensive is this system, this type of system?
The beach barrier system. So there's a lot of variability in it, depending on how it's mounted, whether it's a surface mount, whether it's a chain mount, whether you're doing permanent moorings, etc. But the typical range will be, it's not a cheap installation. This is a permanent installation, is between $500 and $1,000 per meter. Any other questions?
Seasonal, so would we bring it in on the off
You
season?
can bring it in if you want to. I mean, in certain areas, it can be left in year round.
Seasonal. What does salinity or temperature impact effectiveness? And another comment about life expectancy of the system.
Sure. So temperature does not affect it. Salinity will. So if you're in brackish water or fresh water won't work, period. If you're in brackish water, it's going to make the field smaller because we have less conductivity of the water. And so therefore the field isn't going to be as large. The life expectancy of the system, I mean, if it's maintained properly, 15, 20 years, it's a long-term installation.
And in that, you continue to evolve that product too, so we might gain the benefit of improvements?
I'm sure. I mean, like with any of our technology, we always continue to improve it. Yeah.
So Dan asked again on the cost again. So the installation, Dan, was...
It's 500 to, again, it depends on, there's so many variables that go into it, but $500 to $1,000 per meter, which is just over 3 feet. And then Mark says the size of a well fleet range. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, he's asking about a specific question about a specific beach. We'd have to kind of get into that. We can't leave them in during winter nor'easters, right? So yeah, that's probably what we would imagine somebody might do here on the Cape. So Roger Schultz,
and that can totally be done.
Yeah, so Roger Scholl is answering Mark Angelillo's question. So we're thinking about Newcomb, like again, just totally brainstorming here. Mm-hmm. That would be 200 meters, so about $200,000 at the high end.
Yep.
So that makes sense. And maybe as the technology evolves, it becomes less expensive, like my really cheap tiny phone.
I mean, we are talking marine grade equipment, so it's always more expensive than consumer electronics, but yeah.
No, of course. I'm just making sure I don't miss anything. So there's a little bit of kind of local chatter here, which is good. Mark Angelillo's asking about alarming. So I don't think it's an alarm thing, is it?
So yeah, we're not, like, the idea is it just keeps the sharks away. So it's not like the clever buoy where you're going to constantly get dings that there's sharks in the area. That's not what we do. We just keep them away.
Right. And I heard you say too, you had some drone footage where when the barrier was active, you could see drones and there were 50, even despite it being chummed, they would not come forward. And as soon as the power was out, then they would come in, and that was on drone footage. There's also some questions, I don't know how technical, but it's asking about the power system and how would you power all of this?
Yes, so it's got to be powered from land. And the power requirements are going to be, the total wattage and everything. It's got to be converted. AC's got to be converted to DC. And then a lot of it's going to depend on the depth and the length of the installation as to how much power we need.
And does that answer the question on power? Just yes or no, Dan? And then I'm going to go on to another question. Ryan Curley's asking, if you're traveling a straight line 200 meters, we would just assume that's 67 buoys?
Approximately, yep.
Yes, just deterrence. Do you have an official contracts with town officials in Truro Wellfleet National Seashore? So Dan Faber, the answer to that question is no. Cape Cod Ocean Community, your sponsors of this call, are really hoping that through communicating and raising private funds and perhaps private tests, we can help inspire some adoption in some of our local beaches. That's our whole mantra and mission. And there are some officials and decision makers on who are here to learn today, so that's a good thing. Roger Scholl's asking, would lifeguards know if there's a defect in the system?
So there is an app that will go with the system, and that will alert them if there is a problem with it.
So there's an app that alerts if there's a problem. So if there was like a field, that wasn't communicating with the next part of the field, or
yeah.
Second question from Ryan: are horizontal lines used to secure the shape of the system? So unless we put something on the ocean bed, how do we sort of assure that it's,
I mean, you can
protecting
do, yeah. So, I mean, like I mentioned in Glencairn, they just did a heavy chain on the bottom. You can, depending on the shape of the area that you're trying to do, if it's some sort of an inlet and you're just going across, I mean, you can just have a tension line go across that, and then everything hang from that, and that's just, anchored into rock or something like that. I mean, any way that you can put a float out, we can make it work with this, basically.
I'm going to turn off mute for Dan Tobin and Ryan Curley, who are asking questions. Ryan, you're off already. Dan, I'm going to find you and turn you off. Ryan, if you want to ask a direct question, you're off mute.
Brian says he's not off mute.
He may have muted himself then. Yeah, I've got him off. Dan, you're also off if there's anything you want to get specific about.
So we've had no vandalism yet. I mean, I suppose that's not to say it couldn't happen, but I don't know why anybody would. I mean, if they touch it, they're going to get zapped, so it wouldn't be a pleasant experience. Somebody else says, are there power sources at the beaches? I mean, I don't know what your beaches have, but obviously you'd have to run power to it. And I don't think that would be necessarily a huge issue. Most are going to have some kind of lighting or something, so there's got to be power. Somebody else said, I assume seals are having no problem crossing the barrier. That is correct. Seals do not have an ampullae of Lorenzini, just like whales, etc. So dolphins, they can all swim through it without issue.
And do people usually turn this off at night? So like once it gets dark, for example, you would turn it off?
Nope.
Nope, leave it on. Okay.
Well, because think about it. If you turn it off, then you have allowed the field to open up and the sharks can come in. What happens when you turn it back on in the morning? What if there's a shark in there? You've trapped the shark in the swimming area.
Oh, this is why I'm not a lifeguard.
Now, I do have, because this isn't ready for commercial installations yet, right? We're just doing the first one later this summer. So I've got a beach in the Bahamas that is, it's an island, I guess, that's owned by Norwegian Cruise Line. And they've got 3 swimming beaches that are all in one little inlet area. And so what they're doing is they are taking 60 of the boat units, and they're running them out on a line every single day. And then they bring them back in and charge them overnight. And so they actually have to have drones that they send up every morning to make sure that they don't have sharks trapped in when they turn on the field in the morning.
Yeah, so lots of work to operationalize this when someone made a decision to acquire it. So that's a big consideration for the beach safety staff.
Yeah.
Another question about how does this respond to tidal changes? I think you commented on that earlier when you talked about Glencairn, and it was high and low, 8 and 10 feet.
Yep. Yeah. So they've got a lot of, they're both tidal and waves. We're pretty aggressive there.
Yeah, so on our bay side, it's very tidal, so it'll be super, super, super low tide. I mean, boats are laying on the ground, so this would be the same on a baby beach. On the other side, we lose, obviously, quite a bit as well, but there is, constantly a wave presence on the ocean side too.
Yep. And that's all stuff that we can work around, right? I mean, we just have to do an oceanographic survey and see what is it like, and then we just design it to the sea states and conditions. There are very few conditions that we can't make this work for.
Okay, so Ryan, apologize. I'm showing that you're off mute, but these are good questions. So Ryan's commenting specifically in our area that, and he's maybe doing some research that that tidal range that you spoke about is probably at like 1 meter, which would be like
3.3 feet.
Right, which, and we're talking, I think he said on the slide, it said 8 feet.
Yeah, so that might have been the actual waves is 8 feet.
But not the
Tidal change, yep.
Yeah. Our tidal range is much higher. You can see Ryan's comments that was he said. So it makes sense to me that maybe we'll do another follow-up for people that are, maybe kind of still brainstorming and want to get really specific about how it might or might not work. Do you want to proceed on and
Yep.
we can just park some of these and go back?
Yep. And so the only other new product that we have that I wanted to mention is just the A-Spear. Somebody was asking about the bracelet, and I explained why we don't do the bracelet. Our solution in lieu of the bracelet is what we call the E-Spear. And so this is a handheld baton, more or less. When it's folded up, it's about 10 or 11 inches long. And about 1.5 inches in diameter, and you can just wear it in a holster on your thigh, or it can be attached to a carabiner. So this is for people that are not surfing; they're just out swimming, snorkeling, free diving, etc. The field is it is smaller than what you would find on the surfboard product or on the Freedom 7. So it's about 3 feet by 8 feet, but this allows people to have, something smaller that they can just use when they need to. Oh, and somebody's just asked, how much is that one? So that one is $299. So that's a much lower price point as well.
And some other just talk about, you talked before about a mooring. Then there's a question, Mark's asking about boat anchors, mushrooms be used to secure the system. Sounds like the answer is yes. That's consistent with the mooring.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a lot of flexibility in how we do it.
Yeah, so nice comment from Dan that it's a realistic price. I don't know how many people go diving for lobsters anymore, but we did used to have people doing that here.
Yep.
And then back to the old homie.
Sorry, what's that?
No, go ahead.
Okay. And then the only other update I have is that we are just making really small change on the Freedom Plus Surf. And that is just the shape of the decal on the bottom is changing. The protection and the field size is exactly the same. It's just nearly an aesthetic change because people thought the diamond shape was too obvious, that there was an electronic shark deterrent on their board. So they wanted something that was sleeker and more modern looking. So this is what we'll be shipping come January. And I believe that was my last slide. So any other questions you guys have for me?
I'll bring up questions from the earlier call. There's lots of stand-up paddleboarders on this call, and I know that we talked about that maybe not being a high market for you widely, but we can tell you that here there's a lot of stand-up paddleboarders right now, and more and more all the time. So anything we could do to inspire that line of business, we would be happy to participate.
Okay.
And in line with that, also larger boogie boards that came up in an earlier question.
Sure.
So Dan, again, great whites are coming closer to shore these days, less than 10 feet of water. Yeah. Is there a boogie board application? Yeah. Same for paddle boards. Yeah. So Dan, we just hit on those. We that came up on an earlier call too, like yours truly, who's not out in the water anymore. I don't see any other questions. Amanda, I know you thought that you might be willing to share your contact information if people want to follow up.
Yep. Do you want me to just type in? Can I put it in the chat?
Yeah.
All right, I'll just put my email. All right, my phone number and email are in there if anybody needs it.
Yeah, I think I'm just double checking. No more comments. Amanda, I can't thank you enough. Hopefully it's helpful for you to spend 30 minutes and talk to 30 people than have 30 people call you for 30 minutes. So
yeah,
hopefully that feels like a good use of time for you. I know there's a lot of enthusiasm. I'm seeing some new names who are enthusiastic about this here. So, you know how big a problem it is for us here and how we're really racking ourselves and how we're going to move forward in the years ahead. So, thanks for being a good partner and being there for us.
Matt is asking, can we reserve some and when they are available to ship? Is that the new antenna?
Yeah, Matt, Gage, are you talking about the buoy or the beach barrier? Yes.
Which one? Oh, antenna.
The antenna.
Just tell whoever you buy your surf products from and batteries. Most people have back orders in, so whoever is your local stockist, make sure they have a back order in.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah, I've invited, I think Olaf might have joined. Molly was trying to join as well, but all the usual suspects. If someone, again, has specific questions, feel free to reach both Amanda and I'm happy to help as well. And there's more information on our websites, and there's more sessions coming up about how we might use drones on the Outer Cape, some other new technologies that are coming. Also a gentleman from New South Wales who does a lot of journalistic work around the shark topic. So those will be webinars in the future. So watch our website.
Who is that from New South Wales?
Fred Powell, Pawle.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're good. I'm going to turn everybody's time back. And again, welcome to follow up with individual questions and enjoy your night.
Oh, somebody's asking, does the company offer financing? Is that for the beach barrier?
I imagine, yeah.
Seriously, we are a small company. We have 6 employees, so that's not really in our scope of operation at the moment, just financing.
Yeah, but Dan, maybe again, think about what the Cape Cod Ocean Community has done in the past where we've been able to raise private funds for small tests. And maybe that's the way we go so people feel confident and then can help inform larger decisions at a more municipal level. Once we have something that's really tangible in a pocket, it's going to be really tough to go to town meeting for any of these things without having done some small testing, again, perhaps privately funded, that helps really move the needle and make people feel confident about it.
And we are in discussion. There is a private beach in Wellfleet that we've been approached about doing something with. So we're in discussions with Christian.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Yep.
Super. Okay.
All right.
I think I'll wrap. Thanks all. Take care. Stay in touch and be well.
Bye.
Okay. Dan Faber, we need to have a conversation. I'm going to email you. Bye all.